No, I just recap before we get on. The hijack, the construct, which comes down, this is where we're coming now into this part of it, as it operates within human society, and how all these different areas, here we go, politics, banking, secret societies, big pharma, pharmaceuticals, all actually being controlled or focusing on that central force and imprisoning us, enslaving us mentally, emotionally in this tiny frequency band. And that's the thing. They have to get us to believe we have no power. Now, this is an interesting area because this is a certain, what you might call timeline or sequence line. And if you're outside of that sequence line, you can see further down it. You can see things coming. And also if you have a projected agenda and you can access these secret societies that know the projected agenda, then you can write prophetic novels about the future that turn out with hindsight to be incredibly accurate because they're not novels. You knew what the plan was. And like I said ages ago today, if you know the plan and nothing intervenes to stop the plan, you can predict the future. And so they can if you lock into this timeline, this sequence line, through inner secret societies, you know what's coming. And one of those secret societies is the Fabian Society, which has based in London, of course, and it has the logo of the wolf in sheep's clothing. I mean, giving it away or what? And interestingly, a year ago, Tony Blair, he's Fabian. If there's ever a half-truth in a Blair speech, it's a typing error. And people have said to me over the years give me some books that would tell us what this plan is and where it wants to go. Well, here's two. 1984, George Orwell, that's the police state and all that stuff, perpetual war part of it. Then there's Aldous Huxley, that's 1932, that's 1948. Brave New World, that's all the drug and genetic and mind manipulation part of it. And it just so happens that George Orwell, Eric Blair, went to Eton College, and his tutor in French at one point was Aldous Huxley, who introduced him to the Fabian Society, and that's where they got their information about the projected agenda. And he wrote to almost to his death to trying to expose it. And some people say, and they may well be right, that 1984 is code because 1984 was the 100th anniversary of the Fabian Society. So when you can get access to this projected agenda, you become an instant prophet. And there was a man in 1969 called Dr. Richard Day, and he was a Rockefeller insider. The Rockefeller family, massively part of this. And he worked for Planned Parenthood and all this stuff, which is a Rockefeller organization. And so he had the inside projection. And he, for some bizarre reason, no one seems to know why, he spoke to these pediatricians in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania in 1969. And he said, put your pens down, don't make any notes, turn off any recording equipment, because I'm going to tell you how the world's going to change. And he proceeded to tell them what was going to happen in the world. And one of the pediatricians did take notes and then typed them up later. And then before he died in 2004, he did some series of interviews saying what Dr. Richard Day had said that night in 1969. Okay, this is what he said, just some of it. And when we look at this, and the one or two things that will follow, anyone that thinks this is not a coordinated agenda for humanity, well, crikey, have a look at it. This is what Dr. Richard Day said, 1969. Technology used for reproduction without sex. Families to diminish importance. Euthanasia and the demise pill. Limiting access to affordable medical care makes eliminating the elderly easier. New difficult to diagnose and untreatable diseases. Suppressing cancer cures as a means of population control. Education as a tool for accelerating the onset of puberty and evolution. Reconstructing education as a tool of indoctrination. More time in schools, but pupils wouldn't learn anything. Controlling who has access to information. Schools as the hub of the community, in other words, taking over from parents in terms of power. Changing laws to promote moral and social chaos. The encouragement of drug abuse to create a jungle atmosphere in cities and towns. Promote alcohol abuse. Restrictions on travel, the need for more jails, no more psychological or physical security, crime used to manage society, curtailment of US industrial preeminence, shifting populations and economies, tearing out the social roots, sports as a tool of social engineering and change, sex and violence inculcated through entertainment, implanted ID cards, microchips, food control, weather control, knowing how people respond, making them do what you want, falsified scientific research, see human-caused global warming, use of terrorism, surveillance, implants, and televisions that watch you, the arrival of the totalitarian global system. Then there was the Frankfurt School that came out of that city in Germany in the 20s and 30s and then went to America. And this was their wish list all that time ago. The creation of racism offences, continual change to create confusion, the teaching of sex to children, huge immigration to destroy national identity, the promotion of excessive drinking, emptying the churches, undermining anything that is socially cohesive, legal system with bias against victims of crime, dependency on the state or state benefits, control or dumbing down of the media, encouraging the breakdown of the family. Now this was a document dated 1979 that came to light in the 1980s called Quiet Weapons for Quiet Wars, and it was a manual from inside government agencies explaining how you collectively social engineer and manipulate the population. And this is some of the things that it said. Media. Keep the adult public attention diverted away from the real social issues and captivated by matters of no real importance. Media? What? Schools. Keep the young public ignorant of real mathematics, real economics, real law, and real history. Entertainment. Keep the public entertainment below a 6th grade level. Work. Keep the public busy, busy, busy with no time to think back on the farm with the other animals. It also said, keep the public ignorant and you have less public organisation. Create preoccupations and you lower defences. Attack the family unit, what a recurring theme that is in all of them, and you control the education of the young. Give out less cash and more credit and you trigger more self-indulgence and social engineering data. Encourage social conformity and you make programming easier. Minimize protests about tax and you maximize the input of personal economic data while minimizing enforcement problems. Stabilize consent and you stabilize control. Tighten control of variables, like individuality I've said here, and you have greater predictability. Maximize control and you minimize resistance to control. Collapse the currency and you destroy faith in a country and each other, all of which are happening. Control of perception, that's what social engineering is. And this again is the paddle stores, because I'm going to put together a series of dots here relating absolutely to the society and the world we're living in today, to show that it's all coordinated and all these things actually are happening at one unit with one force behind them. As they say, the truth will set you free, but first it will piss you off. And that's the part when you start learning what the world's like. So, here's some coordinates. How do they do it? How do they do it? How do a few manipulate billions of people? Well, they create pyramidal structures like Russian dolls, one doll inside a bigger doll inside a bigger doll. They're pyramids inside pyramids inside pyramids. So a bank is a pyramid and it goes into a bigger pyramid until there's the pyramid of the whole banking system, and at the top of that the same people control it. Same with the transnational corporations, etc. And knowledge is held in the hands of the few at the peak of the pyramid or the inner core of the spider's web, whatever you want to use, and the public are kept in ignorance of that massively in terms of that, the nature of reality itself. These people, presidents, prime ministers, heads of the World Bank and NATO, they're just here today, gone tomorrow, front men and women who are there to impose through legislation the will of the few in the shadows. And like I say, there's this compartmentalized pyramidal structure where in the end, all these different, apparently at this level of society, unconnected areas, in the end, go up to the same network of families that are manipulating them, and thus that is what is behind the institutions of human control and the direction of human society. And we are holding the whole thing together because they are there, and we silly sods are holding the whole structure together. And if we walk away, it collapses. Our enslavement is dependent on our cooperation. We withdraw it, house of cards comes down. This is a key area within that construct of organisations that is very influential. The Round Table Secret Society started in Britain. The first head of it was Cecil Rhodes, who was the front man for the House of Rothschild. They created the Royal Institute of International Affairs in London in 1920. Watch the think tanks. That's one of the massive ways that they manipulate. Council on Foreign Relations came in 1921 in America, still massively influential in American foreign policy. Then the United Nations came, and the Bilderberg Group in 1954, a Trilateral Commission in 1973, and the Club of Rome. I'll come to that eventually in this section, because that was specifically created to use the environment as a means to justify human enslavement and changes in human society. And that symbolizes how it all comes together in the end under one force, one roof. And they have what I call the blueprint. It's something I find everywhere. Whether it's national, international, or local, the same blueprint occurs of secret societies and groupings and networks manipulating their sphere of influence in the way that I described earlier. And because of the way it works, it's actually holographic. Every part of this global network is a smaller version of the whole. So when you come down into something like the Isle of Wight, which is like a few miles by a few miles, it is structured to dictate what happens on the Isle of Wight in exactly the same basic form as the greater hologram, which is dictating the direction of world society. And these people who are put forward in our democratic free society for us to choose from to lead us, they are spewed out by these same people, these same forces, these same networks. So whether Romney wins this coming election or Obama wins it, bloody irrelevant. There's areas where Obama will be worse, there's areas where Romney will be worse, but they're controlled by the same force. And these presidents of Democrats and Republicans, just like, Labour and Conservative, these are just labels for masks on the same bloody face. And this is a great symbolic image of the way it works. I'm giving the American example. I could be talking about anywhere. In America, they have the Republican Party. The previous one in power, apparent power, was Bush, George Bush. And behind him, quite acknowledged in the mainstream media, were a network of people known as the neocons or neoconservatives. And these are people like Wolfowitz and Pearl and the Bush family as a whole, and Cheney and Rumsfeld and John Bolton and all these people. And they controlled the Bush administration and the direction that it took. Then along came Obama, and they have, in the Democratic Party, what I call the democons. These are the Clintons, these are Zbigniew Brzezinski. I put Kissinger in it this time because he's an advisor to Obama, but he's usually over there. George Soros, the financier, he's in there. But the whole point is that at the next stage, after these groupings around that control the parties, the next stage is the same force controlling both of them. So it doesn't matter who gets in, because that's in anyway. This is the way it works. But that's hidden, so we think we're free because we have a vote. This is lovely, the illusion of free choice. Left, right, slaughterhouse, which one do you fancy? And so we're looking at this election now between a mask on the face and another mask on the face. They still think we're different. Well, we're increasingly sussing it, darling. This wonderful front page of Private Eye with Blair and Cameron, world's first face transplant a success. I mean, it just captured the whole bloody thing. I mean, look at it. Obama was going to be different from Bush. He's Bush on bloody steroids. I mean, it's ridiculous. This is a great one too. Here we go. Oh, I'm going to vote Democrat next time. Oh, I'm going to vote Republican next time. What are we seeing now? Oh, the opinion polls for Labour, they're above Conservative. Oh, we go Conservative or Labour. Doesn't matter. Same forces in control. These people are just pawns. They're moved around the pot by a force so that we don't see. So when people say George Bush was big brother, he's not even little sister. Same with Obama. No. They're just here today, gone tomorrow people for a force that people don't know exists. Change the face, change the mask, but the face is still the same. And so we see this going on here. Oh, look, in the news, it says, and we don't see the one force that's manipulating apparently opposing sides in the public arena. As the cards are moved around and we are led to believe they're all random events, like heck they are. And it's all being done, let us not forget, by bloodlines and networks with the deletion of empathy. Thus, anything goes in what they do. Now, what they want is a structure something like this, for a simple reason. If there's a few and you want to control the many, you have to centralize decision-making. Like I said earlier, the more diversity there is, the less power the centre has. And so we've seen this incessant centralisation of power in all areas of our lives, in media ownership, in political parties, in government with the European Union, etc., globalisation. And they want, under a world government, which is they're already talking about, and this World Central Bank, they're already talking about, a single currency, electronic. There'd be no cash, for which there are fundamental implications for freedom. You go into a store now, or a garage or whatever, and you hand over electronic money, and they say, sorry, it won't accept your card. You still have the opportunity to pay cash, although it's going out of circulation so fast. Once it's gone out of circulation and there's only that electronic money, and they want one single electronic currency eventually, then that's deciding if you purchase what you purchase and if you can purchase at all. And of course, dissidents of the system will very quickly go off the Christmas card list of the computer. Under that, they want, or microchip population too, or they want a world army, which would impose the will of the world government. Now, we've got so far in this, I've been using this graphic now since way back in the 1990s, and we've reached the point now where we have a de facto world government. We call it the UN Security Council, or the G8, or whatever the G they're coming up with next, because what those few countries do is they decide that this country's behaviour is not acceptable, and therefore they're going to do something about it. And what do? They send in the de facto world army, called NATO, or the American or British military, to do what the few say must happen in these other countries. And what we're seeing is merely the de facto version of what they want to be enshrined in law. A world government, anyone in the world that doesn't accept the will of the world government, in goes the world army to sort them out. And then they want these regions and stuff under that, the European Union, the American Union, the Pacific Union, African Union, they probably want a few more as well. And coordinates, methods of manipulation, how do they push this centralisation and this transformation of the world on? Well, this is something, a term I came up with, again, way back, problem, reaction, solution. It's a powerful way of changing society by manipulating public perception. 9/11, a classic. Ordo ab chaos is a Latin motto for the 33rd degree of Freemasonry. It means order out of chaos. It's problem, reaction, solution. Very simple. You want to change society in a way that you know will not be acceptable to the majority, and you get a lot of resistance. So you don't do it openly. Stage one, you create a problem. It could be a fake terrorist attack, it could be a war, it could be a government crash, an economic crash. You then tell the public through an unquestioning media the version of that problem you want them to believe. It's a lie, but you want them to believe it. So you have the manufactured problem. You now want the public at this point to have the reaction of fear, of outrage, and say, what are they going to do about it? At that point, those who've created the problem and glean that public reaction then openly offer solutions to the problems they have themselves created. And those solutions are changes in society which advance the agenda of global control. I have just described 9/11 to a bloody T. It was an inside job with major government agencies and military input, not just in America either, to create a massive problem to which solutions could be proposed. What have those solutions be? A war on terror, which has dramatically deleted basic freedoms all over the world, not least in this country, America, and elsewhere. And it has justified, not really, but it's been used to justify fantastic increases in surveillance and control, all based on a bloody lie. This is Zbigniew Brzezinski. He's a big, long-time mentor of Barack Obama. He's in the Democons, quite a major one. And when you read his books, he's telling you what's coming, because like George Orwell and Aldous Huxley, he bloody knows, because he has access to it. And he wrote this book, The Grand Chessboard, in 1997, in which he said, moreover, as America becomes an increasingly multicultural society, it may find it more difficult to fashion a consensus on foreign policy issues, except in the circumstance of a truly massive and widely perceived direct external threat. So they create one. Al-Qaeda, and Osama bin Laden, who was actually on the CIA payroll for years with the war against the Russians in Afghanistan. And so we have jet fuel, yeah, that's a good one. And we have these buildings which were of the same design as the Twin Towers and burned more fiercely and with far more heat and never even threatened to come down. And this is just one area. I mean, the 9/11, not one strand of the official story fits with another. If that's true, that can't be true. If that's true, that can't be true. And here's just a little clip, little video, emphasizing one part of this, and that's the Twin Towers and the official story that they came down because of plain fuel. Let's have a look at this.
What do falling buildings look like? What do demolitions look like? We are seeing typical implosions, characterized by gutting a building's base and then pulling it into itself. Computer-controlled sequencing fires the explosives in a rapid wave. Notice the jets of shooting concrete, the flashes, the pops, the caving of the buildings as they fall into their footprint, the tremendous billowing clouds of dust. Now let's look at the collapse of the Twin Towers. We are seeing explosions rather than implosions, a first in demolition history. A sequenced rumble becomes a roar as debris is thrown outward. The damage is not contained. Even the windows are blown from neighborhood buildings. What kind of energy enabled this? Would fire hurl metal and concrete sideways into the air? Here, a 600,000-pound chunk of steel, twice the weight of a Boeing airliner, was flung 400 feet, wedging itself deep into 3 World Financial Center on Vesey Street. A female photographer taking pictures of Ground Zero wondered why so many steel beams were jutting from neighborhood buildings. What shot pieces of the towers all the way across the street? In April 2006, New Yorkers were distressed to learn that bone fragments, human remains from 9/11, had been found on the roof of the nearby Deutsche Bank building.
How in God's name did those fragments get there?
It surprised me that there was still bone fragments or human remains that had not been discovered.
How is it possible that after 5 years they're finally looking on the rooftops of the Deutsche building? I mean, that's crazy.
And bone fragments less than a centimeter long. How could they be so small? So much to be explained. Why did the South Tower fall first when it was the second tower to be hit? Watch the top of Tower 2 leaning outward, about to topple. Then, suddenly, it disintegrates in midair. What causes this giant slab of steel and concrete to turn into dust before our eyes? Watch both buildings collapsing straight down, directly into the path of most resistance, which is all the floors and all the mass of the building itself.
And yet, despite that, the towers fell the towers fell in free fall speed. In other words, all the resistance was being removed before that coming down above it hit it. There's some kind of massive energy direction weapon involved in that, I'm sure, because there's so much technology outside the public arena that we don't know about. And thus, again, sense of possibility. If we don't know about it, we're not going to think, well, it could have been used, to do that. So you have to always have this understanding that whatever is the cutting edge of technology in the public arena is nothing like the cutting edge in the secret projects that they're using. And this is, this whole Twin Towers thing. I mentioned earlier about the Twin Towers were kind of symbolic of this Saturn thing with the planet and the crescent. Well, the Twin Towers, obviously there's the Twin Towers again in the Mother Lodge of Freemasonry, and there's the Twin Towers that were said to be outside Solomon's Temple. I think Solomon's Temple was probably Saturn in some way, symbology of something like that rather than a temple. But anyway, this is David Rockefeller, massively involved in this over his 97 bloody years. He's obviously had a lot of bloody life force. And he was the man responsible for building them, or having them built. And this is how far the projection goes. When he had those built, he would have known what the end was going to be, or was planned to be. That's how far it's projected. And here you have the Twin Towers again in Freemasonry, the Republic of Dominica, and this is in Israel, the Twin Towers and the Eye and the pyramid. And there's the Twin Towers at Mecca with it next to the Kaaba. Here you have the Twin Towers in Lord of the Rings. And, esoterically, in the tarot card for the tower, it relates to change, eruption, upheaval, exposure, cataclysm, blindsided, sudden shift, fire, lightning, and falling. And these people are using this esoteric level of knowledge all the time. Another interesting thing, I'm not saying all these were on purpose, there are coincidences happen, but there's so many of these things that were indications of the Twin Towers coming down or being attacked long before they were. This is on The Simpsons, 9/11. This is the invasion has begun. There's the Twin Towers again. This is another attack on the Twin Towers. This is a kind of a board game called Illuminati where they have the Twin Towers as part of it. There's the Twin Towers attacked again and again. And look at that, there's a plane in that one, in this kind of comic book thing. Then this is Sega Saturn. They like me, they let me use their music. Long story. This is the Saturn air balloon that was actually flying around the Twin Towers around the time that they were attacked. And here in the Illuminati game again is the attack on the Pentagon and all the rest of it, which also was part of 9/11. And this was a big red flag. The Lone Gunman was a spin-off of the X-Files. And in March 2001, months before 9/11, they had an episode of The Lone Gunman in which an aircraft was hijacked in terms of its flying system and its computer system from the ground, overrode the input from the pilot, so they're sitting there, they can't fly the plane because it's not responding to them because it's being flown from the ground, which is what I suggest happened on 9/11, and they fly it towards the Twin Towers, and they're going to smash it in the Twin Towers. This is in March 2001, and in the story, some good intelligence people hacked into the system, got control back from the pilots, and they pulled it up and just missed crashing into the towers. But they knew it was coming. Lots of people knew it was coming. This is Aaron Russo. He's an award-winning film producer, and he was a friend for a while of Nick Rockefeller, until Nick Rockefeller invited him to join the Council on Foreign Relations, one of these elite insider groups. And when he was asking him to join, which he refused to do, this is 11 months before 9/11, Aaron Russo eventually went public on this. Russo said that Rockefeller told him 11 months before 9/11, there would be an event that would lead to the invasion of Afghanistan and Iraq, to take over the oil fields and establish a base in the Middle East. Russo would see soldiers looking in caves in Afghanistan and Pakistan for Osama bin Laden. There would be an endless war on terror where there's no real enemy. The whole thing would be a giant hoax People have to be ruled, he said, and the population reduced by at least half. Plans for mass microchipping of the serfs, as he called them, was also part of the agenda, he said. And here, Saturn symbolism or what, is the memorial to the victims of 9/11. I mean, that's taking the piss, that is. And so the official story of 9/11 has just left the room. But from that has come all this justification for the transformation of human society. Okay, common themes again. While 9/11 was going on, there were exercises in the same 9/11 skies and others around America, with scenarios going on, exercises that involved similar hijacking of planes. Indeed, one scenario was a plane hitting a building. And I've seen the logs and read the logs of NORAD, the official response system in North America to hijacks and stuff. And these exercises completely scrambled the reaction system. Not only that, the exercises seconded planes that would normally protect the skies over the eastern seaboard, and they took them out to exercises in other places. It scrambled the system. And these NORAD people, when the reports of 9/11 planes came in, said, is this real or is this exercise? And that's the idea. There was a form of exercise going on in London at the time of the 7/7 bombings in 2005, which was based on bombs going off at the same stations that actually they went off at. In 2004, there was a NATO anti-terrorism exercise in Madrid that went on almost up to the Madrid train bombings going off, which were all these things blamed on the wrong people. Then there was the Oslo situation, where there was a police bomb exercise going on in the same place up to 20 to 30 minutes before the real one went off. They'll be going off simultaneously eventually. And then all these lone nutters that are involved in these things. Why? Why are they lone nutters? Because you look at these people like James Holmes, a guy who got the rap for the Colorado movie theater shooting, when witnesses in the theater said there were firing coming from at least two directions, so it wasn't only him, if it was him at all. Look at his eyes, no one home there. And so what have they done to this kid? Because there's mind-controlling people to do it, and there's mind-controlling people to be in the wrong place at the wrong time while others do it and take the rap for it. This guy, Wade Page, the guy who killed himself, they say, after the shootings in Wisconsin at the Sikh temple. Witnesses in the temple said there were multiple gunmen. But the reason they hold it at one lone nutter, all these going back, is that the definition of a conspiracy is an agreement between two or more persons to engage jointly in an unlawful or criminal act. They can hold it to one person. They stop any suggestion or further investigation officially of a conspiracy. So, like I say, if you do not have a perception that is movable, then you only have the lie to go on, and thus most people believe the lie. Now, there's other common themes, like what they leave behind. You had these Muslim bomber, 9/11 people, hijackers, so we're told, and they left Qurans everywhere, these people. I thought it was a holy book. They left them in hire cars and hotels and everything. I mean, what are these people? The Islamic equivalent of the Gideons? Well, who are these people? And then they left flight manuals in their cars. You mean they're having the last look before flying a bloody wide-bodied jet? I mean, what? It's like, let's just have a look. What's that knob do again? What? And of course, box cutters. I love that story. They said they'd found a building in Afghanistan just after 9/11 when they invaded, and Bin Laden had said to be there, and they found box cutters. Well, that's a lot of good in Afghanistan. It happened in New York, you pillock. I mean, but what is it? It's give them an image. Don't give them detail. You know they won't, most of them won't, it won't stick anyway. Just give them an image Oh, you see, they did found Box Castles, Ethel, so it was them Arabs. And I watched the BBC newsreader tell me a few days after 9/11 that the FBI had had a press conference and announced that they found a passport from one of the hijackers in Vestry Street near Ground Zero. A paper passport. I think there's more to know here. I'm not a physics major, but, you know, feel it in me water. I mean, you know, whoa, God, dear me. But people believe it. People believe it. Repetition is one of the greatest forms of mind control and perception control. Keep telling them the same thing over and over again, it becomes the accepted truth. But if you can control the governments, you control the agencies that do it, you control the reporting of it, you control the investigation of it, you control the countries involved in it, you can put these things on and cover them up, no problem. And then what you do, problem, reaction, solution, is you then change the nature of society to solve the problem that didn't actually bloody exist, or you created it. This is Hitler announcing the creation of the Gestapo in Germany. An evil exists that threatens every man, woman and child of this great nation. We must take steps to ensure our domestic security and protect our homeland. Exactly. Could have been George Bush or any of them after 9/11. Problem, reaction, solution, Second World War. Same bloodlines were behind Soviet communism, Britain, America, etc. They were behind Nazi fascism. They brought them together in the Second World War. Massive global problem, and came massive global solutions. The world changed dramatically after World War I on purpose. It changed dramatically after World War II, and the dramatic bit, overwhelmingly, was the great centralization of power that it brought about. This guy, Werner von Braun, who was in Nazi Germany at the time of the war, was with many Nazis, scientists and mind controllers and geneticists, were brought to America and South America after the war to work for the CIA and stuff. And he was the major force behind the propulsion systems of the Apollo missions and stuff. And when he knew he was dying, he had an assistant, Dr. Carol Rossin.
When I was a corporate manager of Fairchild Industries in 1974 through 77, I met the late Dr. Werner von Braun in early 74. At that time, von Braun was dying of cancer, but he assured me that he would live a few more years in order to tell me about the game that was being played, that game being the effort to weaponize space, to control the Earth from space and space itself. Von Braun's purpose in life during the last years of his life, his dying years, was to educate the public and decision makers about why space-based weapons are a dumb, dangerous, destabilizing, too costly, unnecessary, unworkable, undesirable idea. The strategy that Werner von Braun taught me was that first the Russians are going to be considered to be the enemy. In fact, when I met him in 74, they were the enemy, the identified enemy. We were told that they had killer satellites. We were told that they were coming to get us and control us, the dirty commies, that whole story. First, the Russians were the enemy against whom we're going to build space-based weapons. Then terrorists would be identified, and that was soon to follow. We heard a lot about terrorism. Then we were going to identify third world country crazies. We now call them nations of concern. But he said that would be the third enemy against whom we would be needing to build space-based weapons. And the next enemy was asteroids. Now at this point, he kind of chuckled the first time he said it. Asteroids, against asteroids, we're going to build space-based weapons. So it was funny then. And the funniest one of all was against what he called aliens, extraterrestrials. That would be the final card. And over and over and over, during the 4 years that I knew him and was giving his speeches for him, he would bring up that last card. And remember, Carol, the last card is the alien card. We're going to have to build space-based weapons against aliens. And all of it, he said, is a lie. A lie. He didn't mention a timeline, but he said that it was going to be speeding up faster than anybody could possibly imagine. That the effort to put weapons in space was not only based on a lie, but would accelerate past the point of people even understanding it until it was already up there and too late. In 1977, I was at a meeting in Fairchild Industries in a conference room called the War Room. And in that room were a lot of charts on the walls with enemies, identified enemies, names that people had never heard of, names like Saddam Hussein and Gaddafi. But we were talking then about terrorists, the potential terrorists. No one had ever talked about this before, but this was the next stage after the Russians against whom we were going to build space-based weapons, these terrorists. This is 1977, and they were talking about creating a war in the Gulf region when there was $25 billion in the space-based weapons program that yet had not been identified. It wasn't called the Strategic Defense Initiative, at least, until 1983. This weapons system then had obviously been going on for some time that I didn't know anything about. So I stood up in this meeting in 1977 and it said, I'd like to know why we're talking about space-based weapons against these enemies. I'd like to know more about this. Would somebody tell me what this is about? Nobody answered. They went on with this meeting as though I hadn't said anything. I have concluded that it's based on a few people making a lot of money and gaining power. It's about ego. It's not about our essence and who we really are on the planet and loving each other and being at peace and cooperating, using technologies to solve problems and heal people in the planet. It isn't about that. It's about a few people who really are playing an old, dangerous, costly game for their own pocketbooks and power struggle.
And you know, I've got this from other sources too. When they start talking about we're facing an alien invasion, we have to come together, all resources to fight bollocks it's going to be, and we should treat it as such. Now, there's another form of problem reaction solution which I call no problem reaction solution. This is not a real problem, even a manufactured one. It is a lie which is designed to give the perception of a problem to justify changes in society. Weapons of mass destruction in Iraq, classic. And the global warming hoax, human-caused global warming, is another one. And in and of it, you know, in its own way, the second death of Osama bin Laden was another no-problem reaction solution. Yes, they're going to star him in a new movie. You only die twice, you know. Anyway, these are the Navy SEALs that shot bin Laden. Which is no more fantastic than the official story. This is the compound where he stayed in Kandahar. It's not really a compound, it's a house, but compound sounds more scary, you see. And these are the walking sticks which the man the CIA said they called the pacer used to use when he walked round the garden of the compound. And they said, we thought it might be bin Laden, but we weren't sure because we couldn't identify him. Hello? You can take my number plate from space. I mean, what? This is Osama bin Laden being taken away to be buried at sea. The mainstream media have looked at it and they say they think it's genuine. This is the official CIA report on the bin Laden shooting. This is a newspaper report in Egypt in 2001 reporting the burial and death of bin Laden. Musharraf, the president of Pakistan, said he was pretty sure that bin Laden was dead. And Benazir Bhutto, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, she said the same, that he was dead. And there's a guy called Steve Bajenic who's been in America, connected to many Republican administrations, who's gone public since the second death of bin Laden, saying he died in 2001 of Marfan syndrome, which is a disease of the connective tissue, which can have massive problems with heart and other organs. And he also definitely, according to mainstream media reports, had big kidney problems, problems to the point where he had dialysis. And when they found him shot him in the compound, they told me, I'm listening for mention of a dialysis unit in the compound, because it was that bad, apparently, and eventually it came on the basis that they haven't found one. So it's a bloody miracle, man, in there for 5 years. I mean, you know, Amazing. And so you said, okay, they said this is bin Laden, but it was actually a Photoshop job. But then you said, okay, show us the body. Oh, can't show you the body because we had to bury him at sea, according to a Muslim custom. Well, it's a bugger if you live in the Sahara Desert, mate, isn't it? And then, so then now you say, okay, it's bollocks, but let's move on. Show us the pictures of the body. Oh no, it's much too horrible. We can't show you that. Well, you show us horrible pictures of everyone else. Why are they showing us the pictures? There are none. Got it, yes. And then, this is great because we had this again, milk the image, not the detail, milk the image. Oh, they were being shot. Then it comes out, there was no live footage of the shooting. Not this because there was no shooting, but even officially, there was no live footage of the shooting. These were supposed to be watching the live footage of the shooting. I mean, what's she worried about? A crack in the bloody wall? I mean, what's going on? I'm ever so worried about that crack in the wall. It's moving while I'm looking at it. I mean, but people who don't connect the dots and take it further, they believe the lie and then forget they've believed the lie. They then announce, they found this footage. This is bin Laden. Well, no, it's not. It's a bloke with a beard with an hat on. And bin Laden was bloody massively left-handed, and this guy's changing the channels with his right hand. On that basis, by the way, he's changing channels one after the other, and ODE's on it. And what are the chances of that? And have you flicked as many channels of that anywhere in the world and not hit a bloody advert? No, but he only hit himself. It's ludicrous. Just repeat the lie and people will believe it. Then they said, we found this new footage. No, you bloody haven't. This is footage released in 2011. This is footage released in 2007. Well, we can't release it again because they'll notice. Well, put a blue background on it, mate. Put a blue, they'll never guess. Put a blue background. And this is new footage. And this is footage released in 2002. It's not new at all. This was bin Laden in 2004. This was him in 2007. It's a good job he died for a second time, or the FBI would be putting out an all-stations alert for a little boy with a beard and a bloody baby buggy, wouldn't they? Getting bloody younger. You've got to watch this stuff, you know, because computer graphics and computer manipulation of movies and sound and voice and everything, they can make someone say anything when they're bloody long dead. And you see this in the movies. You've got a blue screen and suddenly you've got a very credible background of something, which is just a bloody studio. And these bloody videos that came, oh, another bin Laden video. Hey, we've got an election coming up. Can you get another bin Laden video going? Yeah, let's call that Rita Katz at that site. Search for international terrorist entities. I spell it with an H myself, but this is someone connected to Mossad. A father was massively involved with Israel, and she was releasing these bloody videos, and we're supposed to take them frickin' seriously. And then they pull the compound down. Well, it's a perfectly good house, but they pull it down. And did you notice a lot of Navy SEALs from the same group that were supposed to have been involved then die in a helicopter crash not long after. And there's some guy now written a book, or says he is, under a pseudonym, about the shooting of bin Laden. Crikey, that's got to be a laugh. But people believe it, you see. And so when they announce bin Laden has died for a second time, or they all come to the White House to congregate. USA, USA. Hey, excuse me. The president's just said the tooth fairy's real. Tooth fairy, tooth fairy. And a few people can't control the world. It's a piece of cake. And along with problem, reaction, solution and no problem, reaction, solution, there's the totalitarian tiptoe. This means that you're at A, you know you're going to Z, but you don't tell anyone else you're going to Z because they'll see something's going on. So you go towards Z as quickly as you can, from A to C, maybe to, F or whatever, as quick as you can, but not so quick as you alert too many people to the pattern. Fascism, you really think, oh, this obvious. Well, it's becoming this obvious, but up to this point, it's been this totalitarian tiptoe. And I've just described the European Union. I love the European Union. I think it's great. I think it's an abomination. And we are going further and further into a fascist dictatorship, communist dictatorship, however you want to talk about it, in Europe. This is Jean Monnet, the so-called founding father of what became the EU, and a Rothschild frontman, in a letter to a friend one day after I was born, 60 years ago. And he said, Europe's nations should be guided towards the superstate without their people understanding what is happening. This can be accomplished by successive steps, each disguised as having an economic purpose, but which will eventually and irreversibly lead to federation. And now we're having Jose Manuel Barroso coming out in the last few weeks calling for a federation of states with absolute loyalty to Brussels to sort out the problems that these buggers have on purpose created, problem, reaction, solution. So we had this always bad, big bad communist war, always terrible, and the Cold War. And so then, because they wanted to encompass those countries into NATO and the European Union, along comes Gorbachev, smiley, happy-feely, the Berlin Wall comes down, and bingo, we have another version of the Soviet Union, but because people have a vote in pathetic European elections for a parliament that has no power, we're told it's not a communist or fascist state, it's actually a democratic entity. And they signed the Treaty of Rome that created what became the European Union on Mons Saturnis, Capitoline Hill. It has very great symbolic significance for them. So, also, totalitarian tiptoe is globalization. Globalization is simply the incessant centralization of power in every area of our lives. Thus, it is the agenda I've been talking about all these years unfolding before our eyes. And what they do is they abuse both sides of this globalization. They abuse the people who are making this stuff under starvation wages and horrific conditions, and then they charge as much as they can get away with in the West to make as much money as they can from selling it to the richer world. And the idea of globalization and bringing down so-called trade barriers is to create a situation where every part of the world is dependent upon some other part of the world and don't have the ability to be self-sustaining. Because once you lose the ability to be self-sustaining, you're now at the mercy of forces and changes you have no power over. That's the idea. And this network is behind globalization, the European Union, the whole bloody thing of centralization of power. Okay, global warming. Well, people have said that the whole global warming scam is about carbon taxation and all that stuff. If only. This is far more significant than even most conspiracy researchers that look at the global warming are kind of realizing. This is a justification of the most extraordinary transformation of human society from any vestige of freedom to pure, undiluted totalitarian fascism. This is why, no matter what the scientific evidence, they will not look at it. They are pushing on with this agenda no matter what comes out, because it is vital. It is vital to the everything in so many ways that they're trying to create, and I'm going to explain why. This is Al Gore. One of the things I've learned over this quarter of a century, if Al Gore's involved, it's a scam. End of story, by the way. Anyone who is vice president to Bill Clinton, well, say no bloody more. And it's eco-fascism because they need you to believe in global warming in order to control you. That's absolutely right, for this reason that I'm going to explain. We had the Earth concerts, usual bloody suspects pushing it, and this global warming survival reptilian brain handbook was written for the Earth concerts by David de Rothschild. He cares about the world. He's lovely. This is a graph of greenhouse gases. If you believe the bollocks and the propaganda, this has to be carbon dioxide. Has to be. But it's not. It's water vapor and clouds. This is CO2, and only the little sliver of green is caused by humans, the rest is natural. And by the way, without carbon dioxide, we wouldn't have the world that we live in. Yes, let's take something we need and demonize it. Yes, that's a good archontic inversion, isn't it? Yes, that's right. It's just come out in 2012 that from the end of the warming period, 1997 to 2012, there's been no warming, basically. So that's why they're calling it climate change. They can't call it global warming because people say, well, it ain't warming, mate. This is research by physicists at CERN in Geneva, which was banned for a while, but then it got out in the media and they released it. And this is the findings that have shown that there is a near perfect correlation between climate change, global warming, and the penetration of cosmic rays into the Earth's atmosphere throughout history. You don't mean that warming could have something to do with the sun, could you? No, notice the sun never gets a mention. Well, forget about the sun. No, it's carbon dioxide. Bloody ridiculous. There you go. What they've done is they took one cycle of solar activity, locked into it, called it global warming catastrophe, and have just, refused to go back on it. This is a guy who was one of the global warmists in the global warmist cult. He's had the guts to come out and speak the truth. A guy called David Evans, full-time and part-time consultant for 11 years to the Australian Greenhouse Office, now the Department of Climate Change. He said the debate about global warming had reached crazy proportions. I'm a scientist who was on the carbon gravy train, understands the evidence, was once an alarmist, but am now a skeptic. He said the whole idea that carbon dioxide is the main cause of the recent warming was based on a guess that was proved false by empirical evidence during the 1990s, but the gravy train was too big, with too many jobs, industries, trading profits, political careers, and here we go. And the possibility of world government and total control riding on the outcome. Evans said that the governments and their tame climate scientists now outrageously maintain the fiction that carbon dioxide is a dangerous pollutant rather than admit they are wrong even when the evidence is overwhelming. They can't admit they're wrong. They can't admit they're wrong for reasons I'm coming to because their whole house of cards will come down. That is how important this is. And then I read a Reuters report. Missing global heat may hide in deep oceans. It's hiding now. The mystery of Earth's missing heat may have been solved. It could lurk deep in oceans, temporarily masking the climate warming effects of greenhouse gas emissions, researchers reported on Sunday. Whoa! Climate scientists have long wondered where this so-called missing heat was going. How about it wasn't bloody there? Especially over the last decade when greenhouse emissions kept increasing but world air temperatures did not rise correspondingly. It's hiding now. He's going looking for it, look. He's looking for the warming. Quick, 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 someone's coming. Act as if you're cold. Brr, brr. Oh, no, it's cold there. There's no warming hiding. Now, Club of Rome, mentioned it earlier. This was specifically set up to use the environment, and there are environmental concerns we should be dealing with, but they're being put aside for this bloody global warming bloody nonsense, to use the environment to justify this transformation of society I'm talking about. This is Aurelio Pecci, one of the founders of the Club of Rome, quoted in the First Global Revolution, 1991, a publication of the group. In searching for a new enemy to unite us, we came up with the idea that pollution, the threat of global warming, water shortages, famine and the like would fit the bill. And so we have these outrageous films with children blowing up because they don't agree with global warming. What a bloody outrage. And then we had this, I love this, we had this big alarmist thing came out recently. Oh, look at Greenland, it's the biggest surface melt, it's unprecedented in Greenland. Same press release. Melting events of this type occur about once every 150 years on average, with the last one happening in 1889. What happened to unprecedented? And by the way, what happened to the one before that one? What caused it? Turbocharged handcarts? And And then NASA came out later and said actually there was a massive cyclone that was responsible for most of it. And then you look at the other end, the Antarctic, and it's a record ice cover in 2012. And yet we've got the cult, and he's in the carbon credits and bloody gravy train. This is the Prime Minister of Australia, Julia Gillard. She said, oh, no carbon tax under my government. Came in carbon tax, and it's devastating the Australian bloody economy. And I'd say to Greens, and I'd say to environmentalists, get your bloody arse in gear and realise what's real and what is manipulated. Because at the moment, ladies and gentlemen, you who have bought this bloody thing, you are demanding the building of your own prison. Now that's fine, but you're demanding the building of mine and my children's as well. On the basis of a bloody blatant lie. Here you go. Follow the Bono. That's a great thing. They say follow the money. I say follow the Bono. It's his mate. There's a few others. Look, you know, follow the Bono. They're all there. Now, there was a film came out earlier this year called Hunger Games. And this encapsulated in so many ways the society where the global warming bollocks is supposed to take us through justification. Of course, if you look at the symbol of the film, it's the phoenix, the firebird. For those who haven't seen it, it was a world sometime in the future of enormous, total control, where different sectors were fenced off and people were not allowed to go in most of the land of the country. And they were controlled from something called the Capitol, which was an elite that was served by all the poor people and hungry people around the country. They had games every year where two young people were picked from each sector who had to fight on live television, and the one who won was the one that stayed alive after all the others were killed. The idea was to kill all the others and win the game. As Dr. Richard Day said in 1969, violence, pornography and obscenity in the media and movies will be increased to desensitize people to violence and porn and make them feel life is short, precarious and brutish. And the Hunger Games was a classic, but it was more than that. It was a symbol of the society that we're heading towards so fast. This was one of the elite in the Capitol, the equivalent of what people call the 1%, although, as I say, the real control is in far fewer than that. And we have a version of the Hunger Games, and it's called Agenda 21 Sustainable Development, and it is being orchestrated outside or through the United Nations, and it is a stalking horse, a Trojan horse for world fascism, as I'm going to go through and explain. Agenda 21 was agreed at the 1992 Earth Summit in Brazil, which was headed by this guy, Maurice Strong, one of the gang big time, a mate of Al Gore. And he said, Maurice Strong, this billionaire oil man, etc., he said, isn't the only hope for the planet that the industrialized civilizations collapse? Isn't it our responsibility to bring this about? What they are trying to do and planning to do is use saving the environment, which these buggers are destroying, to justify deindustrialization and the end of democracy and democratic, which is another thing I could talk about. Democracy and freedom, interchangeable? Don't think so. Anyway, this is the wish list in documents for Agenda 21 operating through the United Nations. An end to national sovereignty, all justified by saving the world, by the way. An end to national sovereignty. State planning and management of all land resources, ecosystems, deserts, forests, mountains, oceans and fresh water. Agriculture, rural development, biotechnology and ensuring equity equals slavery. The state is to define the role of business and financial resources. Abolition of private property is not sustainable, they say. Here we go again. How many times has this come up? Restructuring the family unit, children to be raised by the state, People told, this is what Aldous Huxley said in Brave New World, people told what their job will be, major restrictions on movement, creation of human settlement zones, I'll get to them in a minute, mass resettlement as people are forced to vacate land where they live for reasons I'm coming to, dumbing down education, achieved a long time ago, mass global depopulation in pursuit of all of the above. And what they're doing to hide it is they're setting Agenda 21 organizations up in all local communities, all over the world, America, Britain, all over the place, and they're giving the impression that each of these is basically an independent local community initiative, when it's all being orchestrated through this organization, through the United Nations, called Local Governments for Sustainability. So when I came across all this stuff, I thought I'll have a look at the Isle of Wight, a few miles by a few miles, and I found that the Isle of Wight had joined Agenda 21 in November 2000. And it says on the Agenda 21 Isle of Wight website that it was developed and written in partnership with the people of the Isle of Wight and reflects their vision for the future of the island. Ever since I saw that, I have been asking everyone I meet on the Isle of Wight, have you ever heard of Agenda 21? No, mate, no, mate, no, mate. Nobody's heard of it. And yet, it was the people. This is going on all over the world. And they openly talk in some of these organizations connected to it about the post-democratic, post-industrial world, which is basically symbolized in so many movies recently that are putting this stuff in. Now, Zbigniew Brzezinski, big mentor of Barack Obama, one of the demo cons, he was the national security advisor to Jimmy Carter, and he wrote in another of his prophetic books, because he knows what's coming, called America's Role in the Technotronic Era, 1970. The Technotronic Era involves the gradual appearance of a more controlled society. Such a society would be dominated by an elite unrestrained by traditional values. Soon it will be possible to assert almost continuous surveillance over every citizen and maintain up-to-date, complete files containing even the most personal information about the citizen. These files will be subject to instantaneous retrieval by the authorities. 1970 he wrote that. Now, we've had a technocracy which is defined as government by technicians, specifically management of society by technical experts, including bankers, by the way, that includes. And look at what we've now got in Italy. We have, in one of the biggest economies and major countries of Europe, we have a government with not one elected official in it, headed by this guy, Mario Monti. And we had a situation in Greece where we had this guy, Lucas Papademos, as a banker, leader of the country, never seen a ballot box in his life. This organization that I mentioned, I know, these bloodlines are bloody good lookers, ain't they? Eh? I blame the inbreeding myself. This is Brzezinski, comes from the planet Zog. And this is David Rockefeller. Now, they co-founded the Trilateral Commission, one of those organizations in that Bilderberg Council on Foreign Relations network with the Club of Rome that I've shown. And it just so happens that Mario Monti, before he became unelected leader of Italy, was the European head of the Trilateral Commission, and Lucas Papademos was a member of it. This is the first step to justifying problems, not least financial, to take away even the right of people to choose their own government, rubbish as most of them are anyway, but at least we've got a right to, at least in theory, choose it, but no choice at all. Bringing the technocrats in, this is absolutely in line with Agenda 21. And these bloody politicians in Westminster and all around the world, Capitol Hill, are all kind of, you know, especially on Capitol Hill, bought and bloody paid for. They got to realise that they're in the bloody sights of this whole operation too, because they are due to no longer exist, but to be replaced by technocrats eventually. And they want a world of regions, because if you're going to have total control of people in the Orwellian police state way that they want. This is why things like the Hunger Games, they have sectors which are fenced off from the other sectors. Is you need to do it right into the local level if you want total control. And this is why you're seeing this movement of the police state going into communities at a lower and lower level. So one area of this structure that they want is breaking countries up into regions. And this is one of the maps for how they intend to break up European Union, into regions. And what they have planned is that regions of one country are connected into regions in another, therefore destroying national sovereignty and national unity, because they want an end to sovereignty. They want an end to all of it. They just want technocrats, bureaucrats, and uniform impositions of the decisions made by those people, and no democratic things at all. Now, this is something called America 2050. This is all connected into the agenda for Agenda 21, and they have broken up America into a series of mega regions in which they will have mega cities, what they call human settlement zones, which I'll get to. And part of this Agenda 21 is for an enormous cull of the global population. And I'm not kidding when I say cull. I'm talking coming down to 1 billion or 500 million in a world now of more than 7 billion. In 1979, these appeared in Georgia. They're called America's Stonehenge, the Georgia Guidestones, they call them. No one can put their finger on where they came from, who was behind them, and all the rest of it. They're aligned, astrologically aligned, and there's writing of them, written in stone and all that stuff, in different modern languages and some ancient languages, I think including Babylonian. And they call for the population of humanity to be maintained under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. A draft copy of the United Nations Global Biodiversity Assessment calls for the world population to be reduced to some 1 billion, and Nick Rockefeller told Aaron Russo when that conversation took place that the population was going to be reduced by at least half. Whichever it is, there are massive reductions in population. And this guy, Gates, and his missus, through the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, are absolutely bloody obsessed, Bono's mates, with what they call population reduction.